Welcome back to the Money Table. This is your host, Rhonda Chaplin. I'm so glad to be back before you. Took a little bit of a hiatus to shift, as most people did, to be able to be a support to visionary leaders throughout the 2020 pandemic and helping them to reshift and just reset their business models to accommodate for the changes in the world. So just like what I advise my clients, I actually did the same thing with the money table. So the focus has been changed where we're going to be really targeting and talking about vision investing. There were many key learnings from the 2020 pandemic. You know, whether we started to take a look at what does our health look like, or what does our money look like, what does fun look like, what do our careers look like, and then what do our profits look like? And that's what I really refer to as the freedom framework. But we really had to really rethink all of these different areas. But the one key learning from the 2020 pandemic, especially because I focus on the business world, is that, quite frankly, I think many of us have come to the conclusion that we don't need any more businesses or any new businesses. And, let's look at the facts, because this goes beyond just what occurred in the 2020 pandemic. One of the things that we've always been candid and straightforward with at the money table is the stats, right? For over 2 decades, which is 20 years, 80% of businesses survived their first year. And 50% of businesses with employees did not survive the fifth year. And we saw that evident in the 2020 pandemic because a lot of additional businesses closed. And what were some of the leading reasons why they closed? Why? Because they didn't survive because there was not enough capital. 44% of visionaries could not cover a $400 emergency. 78% lived paycheck to paycheck. Now, folks, keep in mind, this was pre-2020 pandemic. Why else were businesses not surviving? They didn't have the right team. 23 million businesses did not have any employees. Can you spell burnout? And 58.9 million businesses, they stayed in a vicious cycle of performance gaps. Why? Because they didn't have the right employees. They established the wrong positions for the right employees, right? So there were all these factors pre-2020 pandemic. So all that we saw after the 2020 pandemic was that, guess what? We don't need any more new businesses, but possibly could we rethink the structure of businesses? Could we rethink addressing the number one reasons of not enough capital? Can we start having candid conversations that, quite frankly, in order to get out of this infinity loop of poverty, that we acknowledge and take the no talk rule off the table? Let's start talking about money. Money is not evil. It's the love of money that's evil. Why can't we talk about prosperity? Why can't we talk about profitability? Because that's our portion. We should not be running a business, and we should not be going around and saying our vision is so great, but then the people are perishing. So what do? Number one, we want to do a reset. Very much how I started. Have to reset the vision of Money Table. You have to reset and take a look at, all right, what's not working? And ironically, people start looking at the vision first. And I know that's what I started doing initially. It's just like, okay, let me just take a look. Does the vision make sense? Or if I've been operating under this vision, am I getting an unction that I need to just do some tweaking to it? Or do I need to update it? because that was what worked 40, 50 years ago. But now I need to restructure and rethink, what does the vision look like? I need to ask myself, what do I see today? And then also taking a look at, am I in my divine placement? Now, we formally, and if you read my book, Break Free Strategies for Your Career, I also took a look at, the 4 quadrants from previous decades, right? The employer, self-employed, business owner, and then of course the investor. But what about if we looked at a different quadrant, where we looked at the visionary leader, a vision integrator, vision helpers, and vision investors? So here at the money table, yes, I operate in all 4 of those quadrants, but the money table is going to be specific to the vision investors. We're going to be speaking the language of what does a vision investor look like? What is the language that they speak? What is the culture of a vision investor? What does the community of a vision investor do? And then what we're going to also look at is, how do you become a vision investor? We're going to be talking about, how do you get connected to actually be a vision investor? Notice the language is different for a vision investor. There's nothing you have to do, but it's how you have to be. So we're going to be talking over the next weeks around, what is your true purpose for money? Because we want to be able to, develop and cultivate vision investors. So we want to be able to resolve the problem of not having enough capital. And it starts with identifying your true purpose for money. And then we're going to address the problem of not having the right team. How do we do that? We're going to be looking at connecting you with visionary leaders that will shape your experience of freedom, love, and authentic power. Now, you may be saying, wow, Rhonda, that's a whole lot. It is, but once you start to really take a look at this, you start to understand, wow, this is what efficiency looks like. This is how we're going to be able to shift the world of business as we now know it. So thank you so much for joining me. This was just a brief introduction, a brief conversation, so that way when you're tuning into the money table, you know who this is for, you know what we're going to be doing, because oftentimes we connect and start listening and start learning things, but really that's not our language. That's not the place. That's not our divine placement of where we need to be. So I look forward to speaking, and I look forward to learning how this is actually reshaping your experience of freedom, love, and authentic power. And this is Rhonda Chaplin, and I look forward to being before you soon.